This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Fleeing Gaza, a Palestinian woman in Halifax makes a plea for Ottawa to get her family members out of the war-torn region.
A place to call home. The doors open on a new income-based housing facility for homeless people 50 and over in Halifax.
And cancelled cruise. Sydney businesses express frustration after a massive ship changes course at the last minute.
First the wind, then the rain, and now the cold temperatures. Frost advisories are in effect. I'll have all the weekend forecast details coming up.
Good evening. Local Palestinians are reacting with relief that a peace agreement looks to end the 2 years of war between Israel and Hamas. The first phase of the plan has been brokered as part of U.S. President Donald Trump's initiative to bring an end to the conflict.
But Palestinians in Nova Scotia continue their efforts to bring family members to Canada under a program they say has not been working fast enough. Gareth Hampshire has that story.
This was the reaction in Gaza to news of a peace agreement. And it's a big development for those in Nova Scotia who've been trying to get their families out of the region.
All people in Gaza are looking forward to hear the news that this is a successful peace deal.
She's still hoping to bring 23 of her family members to Canada under a special measures temporary visa program, but is disillusioned with how long it's taking after applying about 20 months ago.
Canada promised us to save them and give them a safe haven. We are still waiting.
With widespread devastation throughout Gaza, she's doing what she can to try to get them to Canada to bring some stability to their lives. Things are desperate now, she says, with most of them being forced to shelter in tents.
That doesn't protect them from the heat or the cold, and we are going toward the winter in Gaza.
She's been holding rallies outside the Department of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada Halifax office, trying to get faster help for hers and other families in Gaza struggling for basics like food and clean water.
It's very, very urgent especially for my mother, because my mother is a diabetic. She's 62 years old. And she's losing weight. She lost like a third of her weight.
The Special Measures Program has reached its cap of 5,000 applications, and as of the end of July, 880 people arrived in Canada. The department says there are challenges beyond its control responding to an international crisis and is doing everything it can. But those advocating for Palestinian families think more can be done.
It's so little. It's an embarrassment for Canada to purport itself as having put forward a sincere immigration program.
Najla Alzanin's hoping a peace deal will make it easier for her family to finally join her in Nova Scotia and wants Canada to now step up its efforts. Gareth Hampshire, CBC News, Halifax.
An independent committee says the RCMP and governments have completed only a fraction of the changes recommended by an inquiry into the 2020 mass shooting in Nova Scotia. The second annual report from the Progress Monitoring Committee says the recommendations it reviewed were divided into 14 groups, only 2 of which were rated as complete. Despite those numbers, committee chairwoman Myra Freeman says she's pleased with the progress to date. The report says the Federal Justice Department's progress on implementing recommendations regarding supports for victims received the lowest rating, indicating their work had only been initiated.
A new apartment building meant to house homeless seniors officially opened on Brunswick Street in Halifax today. The 4-story complex has 38 rooms and will welcome its first tenants next week. Preston Mulligan has more.
38 people living homeless in Halifax will soon be moving here. The building is tailored for seniors 50 plus with mental health and addictions issues and has built-in support.
The criteria are that chronic homelessness, which we define as at least 2 years of being unhoused.
Built by the St. Vincent de Paul Society of Halifax, a Catholic charity, the $14 million building was funded in part through Ottawa's Rapid Housing Initiative, plus a $3.6 million forgivable loan from the province. It'll be operated by the North End Community Health Centre, who will provide nursing and mental health care, along with other therapy to tenants who up till now have been living homeless.
They will sign a lease and they will pay rent, and the apartment is going to be theirs. This is permanent housing. This is not a shelter. This is not something moving on to somewhere else. This is your home. Let's build a community here and let's provide you the services to remain housed.
9 of the 38 units are reserved for women. African Nova Scotians and urban Indigenous and those with health issues will be prioritized. LeBlanc says each tenant will pay a third of their income to live here.
$325 is probably closer to what they'll be paying for these apartments per month.
There are about 1,028 people in Halifax living homeless. That's down from 1,211 in May. Affordable housing advocates say more buildings like this will start to make a difference.
Lots of folks have indoor options, but a shelter is not a home. A hotel room isn't a home. A tent most certainly is not a home. This is a home.
The new tenants will start moving in next week. Preston Mulligan, CBC News, Halifax.
Residents displaced by the Lake George wildfire in the Annapolis Valley returned home today. The Department of Natural Resources says the fire is no longer out of control and is being held. That means it's not likely to grow or move as long as conditions don't change. The fire began in late September and led to an evacuation order covering about 350 homes and cottages near Aylesford. Re-entry was done in a phased approach with checkpoints and barricades in place, allowing residents in but not the general public. The fire remains 288 hectares and a local state of emergency remains in place in the area.
And folks in that Lake George area have been hoping for rain really for the last few weeks for sure. Tina Simpkin now here with the weather forecast.
Yeah. Tina, they got their wish.
Yeah, they got probably not as much as perhaps they wanted, but there was rain, widespread rain across the province. Some receiving more than others. I saw a couple of reports along the Fundy coast, 40 plus millimeters. It looks like from Yarmouth and that swath along the spine of Nova Scotia, if you will, anywhere from 5 to 15 millimeters. It wasn't really evenly distributed, but it was rain nonetheless. And we had some very gusty wind conditions today. Those winds were out of the northwest, 20 gusting up to 40 kilometers per hour by this afternoon, but this morning they were higher than that. The temperatures this morning not getting too impressively high. In fact, these temperatures, as far as the daytime highs were concerned, actually happened in the morning. The temperatures held steady, if not dropped back a degree with those northwesterly winds. We've got a ridge of high pressure that's going to be building in for the weekend, and that's going to keep our skies fairly clear and fairly quiet. It's going to be a cool start tomorrow with frost advisories in effect, especially for the western half of the province, but a nice warm up for the weekend, and I'll have all the details coming up.
Yeah,
all right.
I like the sounds of
Thank
that.
you,
Okay.
Tina.
Thanks so much, Tina. Well, one of the world's largest cruise ships sailed by Cape Breton last week, causing chaos for businesses and confusion for people waiting to see it. It was scheduled to stop in Sydney, but at the last minute, canceled. The CBC's Kyle Moore explains.
It was a last-minute addition to Sydney's cruise schedule after being diverted away from stormy weather in the Caribbean. But the Symphony of the Seas never arrived in Sydney, and that sent businesses scrambling.
We made sure we ordered extra stock, had staff scheduled. Over at Daniels, we had performers scheduled that normally wouldn't be there as well. Extra staff on for that.
But not long after it was announced the ship was coming, it was canceled. There was confusion, and businesses missed out on an opportunity to cash in.
We couldn't reach anybody at the port, couldn't reach anybody with Royal Caribbean, and we didn't really find out that the ship officially wasn't coming until around noon that day.
What also sent social media into a frenzy was the ship was floating in waters just off the coast of Cape Breton, but passengers never actually made it onto Cape Breton shores.
When they diverted, they were planning to come to Sydney, do some time at sea, and then go to Halifax. So there was no other port that was able to take them in, and the ship is just too large to tender. So
Nicole McCauley says it was ultimately the captain's decision not to dock.
There wasn't just one particular reason, so there's a multitude of factors that they put together to make that decision.
McCauley says the Port of Sydney can accommodate the vessel that measures 361 meters in length and carries more than 5,000 passengers. It is the 5th largest ship in the world.
I'm sure the passengers on the boat were just as frustrated too, right? They were promised a trip to the Caribbean. They find out they're coming to Nova Scotia instead, and then they find out, well, we're actually going to Nova Scotia in 4 days. We're just going to float around here for for 48 to 72 hours. So I think everybody was frustrated. I don't think there was a person that wasn't.
We reached out to Royal Caribbean International for a comment, but they did not respond by deadline. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
Cape Breton Regional Municipality City Hall is open for business as usual. CBRM had been planning to close the building in Sydney for 6 weeks to fix the ventilation system. CBRM says the repair work has been postponed until next spring because of the availability of some metal fabrication materials. That closure would have meant staff working from home or other municipal buildings.
A community meeting happening tonight in Upper Tantallon will focus on developing a response to clear cuts that could happen within the boundaries of the proposed Ingram River Wilderness Area. People have worked for 10 years to get legal protection for the 11,000 hectares of Crown land that once belonged to Bowater. They say its ecological value cannot be overstated.
It's got the literal oldest known forest in the Maritimes. It's been identified as core habitat to the survival of mainland moose. So not just an area where they are, but an area identified in the mainland moose recovery plan that it is essential for the species survival. And supplemental to that, we've got an additional 16 species at risk that we've identified in the area and 72 species of conservation concerns.
The proposal advanced for protection would see about 70% of the area available for ecological forestry, but not clear cutting. One of the organizers of tonight's meeting says that by not protecting the area, the provincial government is ignoring the work and will of people in the community.
Why have a go at clear cutting in an area that people in the community have worked so hard to protect? No consultation with people going on. This is not democracy. Democracy is not voting once every 4 years. Democracy is constant engagement by people in their communities with the government and vice versa. It's not happening.
In response, the province says there is a long history of harvesting in this area. It is not pristine wilderness, and harvests in the area have gone through the proper reviews. And any areas with old growth forest or species at risk were removed from the harvest plans. Tonight's meeting is at St. Luke's United Church in the basement hall from 7 to 9 p.m.
Transport Canada is now dredging the Wood Island Harbour. Machines are out dredging the harbour this week where the ferry crosses to Nova Scotia. There have been low tides over the last few months, causing delays and cancellations for some ferry crossings. Transport Canada says Wood Islands is scheduled to be dredged every 5 years, but the last time it was done was 3 years ago. It moved up the plans for the work because of all the problems with the crossings. Work started in late September and is expected to finish up by December 31st.
The Provincial Minister of Public Works says he's looking forward to seeing more data collected by the Halifax Harbour Bridge Commission. The commission is reporting 40% fewer collisions on both bridges since the toll plazas were removed 6 months ago. Fred Tilley says that shows the decision to remove tolls was a good one.
As we get more and more data, it will tell us a broader story, but I would say that it's certainly been a success. We've seen better flows of traffic. We've been able to up the speed limit at McKay.
The reduction in fender benders comes even as the Commission is reporting a 10% spike in traffic volume.
Nova Scotians can now book appointments to receive this season's COVID-19 and flu vaccines. The vaccines are for anyone 6 months or older. Nova Scotia Health says it's especially important for people in the more vulnerable populations to get vaccinated. And once again this year, those who are 65 or older can receive an enhanced flu vaccine, which provides better protection for older adults. Families can book up to 6 people for a single appointment. The province says if appointments fill up, more will be added.
All right, new baby alert. Hatfield Farm in Hammonds Plains is home to new baby goats.
And a warning, these next images may just be too cute for TV. Tuesday night at around 6 p.m., mother goat Fern gave birth to these 2 adorable baby boys. It was an impressive birth, a very short labor, and both boys were up and drinking within 20 minutes.
They're cute, all right.
They are.
The farm is now looking for name suggestions for the 2 babies. You can post those on their Facebook page, and you can visit them in person. The farm is open 6 days a week from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Some beautiful leaves in Tantallon. Tina is up next with a full weather forecast. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
All right, it probably looked foreign to a lot of people, but the pavement and the grass was wet, certainly in the
nice to
Halifax
hear it
area.
last night.
Yeah, sure was. Some
Definitely.
rain for us here in this part of the province at least.
Yeah, not evenly distributed, though,
No.
across Nova Scotia.
Yeah, that's the bad thing.
Yeah.
Some areas getting up to 40, 50 millimeters of rain, and then other areas barely 5 millimeters. So
Yeah.
it would be nice just to even that all out,
Wouldn't it?
especially along the South Shore and areas where there's still fires. That would be very helpful. We are in for another dry weekend, but we do have rain on the horizon. A couple of chances actually next week, including we'll throw in a Tropical Storm Jerry, and maybe
Just for
Jerry
fun.
Yeah.
will come and visit. Just not too close, Jerry. Just close enough to
Yes,
give us some
exactly.
rain. But if that happens, it won't be until next week at this time. So we'll keep an eye on that from now until then. But it was a cool day. We got the wind, we got the rain, and now we have the cooler temperatures that are settling in. And today's highs, not too impressive. Most of the temperatures only in the single digits for daytime highs, but we did see some double digits, but that happened early this morning. And then the temperatures actually held steady, if not dropped back a degree or two. We did clear out pretty nicely, though, from west to east, and that helped the temperatures at least hold steady in many areas. But when you think about these temperatures right now, and you take us back 3 days ago when we were seeing highs in the upper 20s, even some lower 30-degree temperatures, it's a different air mass that is in place, and it's going to stay fairly cool, not only for today, but for tonight as well. Now through today, with that northwest wind, we did see quite a bit of showers after the front passed its way through, and we saw some showers developing into the afternoon, mostly across northern Nova Scotia, although there were a few sprinkles through the Annapolis Valley. And then, of course, we had some scattered showers really forming in Inverness and Victoria County. Now that the sun is setting and the winds are slowly diminishing, the shower activity will start to taper off, but still holding on to chances for showers in the eastern mainland through to Cape Breton through the overnight hours, and some lingering showers into the forecast for Cape Breton early tomorrow morning. In the meantime, look what happens overnight tonight. The skies do clear out. The winds do slowly start to subside, still northwesterly at around 20 to 30 kilometers per hour, but temperatures really falling off, around 4 degrees for Yarmouth, 3 for Halifax, a little bit warmer in the eastern mainland through to Cape Breton, courtesy of the cloud cover that will stick around, and the winds are going to stay up through the overnight hours, but frost advisories are in effect where the skies continue to clear and the winds subside through the overnight hours. So inland in those low-lying areas or above higher terrain, we'll find those temperatures either near or just below freezing. Here's the front that pushed through yesterday. Now the low center is off the coast of Newfoundland, and it is pushing off towards the east. We've got this northerly wind that's building, a ridge of high pressure building back to our west as well. And that, again, is clearing the skies from west to east. But those clouds over Cape Breton are going to be a little bit stubborn, not only for tonight, but for tomorrow as well. But I do think by tomorrow afternoon, we'll start to see some breaks in the clouds and some sunshine. Take a look over the next 48 hours. We'll see the skies clearing overnight, the winds slowly subsiding, but the winds will stay high over Cape Breton, still 20, gusting up to 40 kilometers per hour overnight tonight. But we all clear out during the day on Friday, and that trend of clearing skies continues right on through Saturday, and we start to get a shift of wind direction. We'll see more of a southerly wind, so that's some good news. Our temperatures are going to warm up as we go into the overnight hours. Not too impressive, maybe a smidge below where we should be for this time of year, but this is actually pretty close to where we should be for this time of year. 13 degrees across Cape Breton for tomorrow, with the winds out of the northwest initially 20, gusting up to 40 kilometers per hour, slowly subsiding into the afternoon. More of a westerly wind for northern Nova Scotia and the better part of the mainland, as temperatures range anywhere from about 11 degrees to 14 degrees. And the South Shore with those onshore winds, maybe a smidge cooler, 15 in Shelburne, 12 in Yarmouth, and around 13 degrees tomorrow afternoon for Annapolis Royal. Now, over the course of the next couple of days, we are going to start to see not only the daytime highs warming up, but the overnight lows warming up as well. So temperatures holding in the lower teens for tomorrow, but as we head into the Saturday and the Sunday, daytime highs getting back to around 17 degrees. And then another disturbance is off the coast of Nova Scotia on Monday into Tuesday. So that will increase the cloud cover once again, bring back chances for showers, especially on Tuesday, maybe some lingering showers on Wednesday. Right now, it doesn't look like a lot of rain, but at least we're talking about rain once again as we head towards midweek of next week.
Right.
Definitely.
We'll hope for more.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Tina.
Thank you, Tina. As we reported on Wednesday, Marineland in Ontario is rejecting a proposal to rehome their 30 beluga whales to a sanctuary on Nova Scotia's eastern shore. But the town of Burgeo in Newfoundland and Labrador is hoping to do the same for the group of beluga whales.
Burgeo Mayor Trevor Green says the waters around the community could be used as a sanctuary for some of the belugas living at the defunct Marineland amusement park. So just how real is this offer? One Dalhousie University professor weighs in. The CBC's Zach Gowdy reports.
I think just from overall for the South Coast of Newfoundland, it would be a great tourist attraction. People pay a lot of money to go on whale watching tours and quite often don't get to see a whale.
Burgeo Mayor Trevor Green got the country talking about his town when he waded into the controversy surrounding the fate of Marineland's beluga whales. 30 belugas remain at the shuttered theme park in Niagara Falls, living in a small concrete tank. The park's owners say they're running out of money and will have to euthanize the belugas if a new home isn't found soon. Could that home be in Burgeo? Mayor Green has written a letter to Federal Fisheries Minister Joanne Thompson outlining why the waters around the small community could make an ideal sanctuary. It says Burgeo offers, quote, sheltered coves with depth, cold, clean water, low vessel traffic, and natural protection. Is this a plan or a pipe dream? CBC News put Green's letter to Hal Whitehead, a professor of biology at Dalhousie University who has been closely following the Marineland belugas. He says Green's assessment of Burgeo's qualities is spot on, but there's more to a marine sanctuary than just a great location.
These are animals that are not capable of living by themselves in the wild. They've just lived in these concrete tanks for so long, and in many cases all their lives. So they need to be looked after, and that is, quite a complex business. It's not a cheap business. Money would have to be, to build the pen. You'd need qualified vets to keep an eye on the animals. You'd need marine engineers to look after the nets and pens and so on. And then you need to feed them, and they eat quite a lot of food. I mean, that would probably provide good business for the local fishermen, but someone's going to pay for that food.
Whitehead says that seaside sanctuaries are certainly the best option for these belugas, but with 30 animals that need to be rescued, no one facility will be able to take them all. A sanctuary in Nova Scotia is nearly complete. There is another in Iceland and others in other countries. Whitehead says it would be great if Burgeo could be part of the solution here. But big questions remain. Animal rights groups say these whales need to be assessed by independent veterinarians to see if they are well enough to be moved. They're calling on the Ontario provincial government to seize the belugas in place and prevent the possibility of their being euthanized while they work on giving these animals a better life. Zach Gowdy, CBC News, St. John's.
Coming up, a survey launched by the IWK takes an in-depth look at women's health across the Maritimes. The IWK Foundation is calling it an unprecedented look into women's health in our region. More than 27,000 women took part in a survey called The Voice of Maritime Women, the Unspoken Burden of Women's Health. And here to talk about it is Jennifer Gillivan, President and CEO of the IWK Foundation. Hi.
Hi, Amy.
So what were some of the main messages you heard as a result of this survey?
Well, what was unique about this survey is we got data for sure, but we also got over 13,000 stories. That was the most incredible part, was the narrative. And I would say the biggest themes coming out of this survey were like over 75% of women felt that they had to kind of almost self-censor. So they weren't actually putting themselves first, and they were often not going to get help. And so by the time you are getting help, you're actually sicker than maybe you would have been. But that was a real shocker for me. The other kind of ones that really stood out for me was 86% of the women said that they needed the system to change. They were very clear about that. And over 70% of them said that their health was impacting their work life, which was huge. And I think for me, the biggest narrative I kept hearing, the words I kept hearing, they were being dismissed, not taken seriously, not listened to. And as you know, as women ourselves, it's an interconnected system. It's not, you can't just go for one thing and just talk about one thing, because sometimes it's I'm feeling this, and more often than not, they were right about their instincts, but they were dismissed from the beginning.
So what were some of the suggestions as ways to improve that?
They didn't really, other than they know they want the system to change. And this is about, we were asking them about their experience. We didn't want to go health-specific system. We really just wanted to hear from these 27. We didn't know at the time. We thought it was going to be 2,000 women. So we were overwhelmed by what we got back. But what they're saying is they're indicating the areas that really impact them the most. And menopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, hormonal issues. They talked about sleep disorder, stress, obesity, weight management. They're all kind of, you can see they're all kind of interconnected. And then they talked about heart disease and cancer. They were the top 6 categories. There were many others, but they were the biggest ones that had the biggest scores, what they want to help in.
Now, the Houston government has talked about expanding healthcare for women, including creation of a women's menopause center of excellence. What do you make of that move?
I think it's a great first step, but I think if you step away and look at the data that's across the country and in fact globally, research, we have less than 7% research in Canada on women's bodies. We do not have full training for medical schools on women's bodies. It's small. It's a very small percentage of what the curriculum is. And the assumption is the female is the same as the male. And what these women are telling you, and they're right, because they correlate with all the data I've read, and I've spent years looking into this, the system was built as the male is the standard norm and for the male. It was not built for women. And they're saying build a better system. They need a better system because it's not meeting their needs.
Now, this was a Maritimes-wide survey. Did you notice any differences between the 3 provinces?
That was what was most interesting to me, was that actually I didn't. Similar kind of answers to questions, same kinds of stories. And I don't know this is anecdotal, but I would bet if I did this survey anywhere else, I would get, other than nuances of geography, I'd probably get the same story because it's the women's story.
So a lot of information. Where does this information go now?
Well, what we're hoping to do is, so today, the launch of this sort of survey is to listen first to these women. We rarely ask women. And so now we've asked them, so let's listen, because they're actually giving you a blueprint for what they need and what we should be doing. Then it's time for everyone to sort of, if you know what you know, now what are you going to do about it? So there's an opportunity here for governments with policies and changes. There's an opportunity for private sector. There's an opportunity for philanthropists and researchers and the medical system. Everyone should stop and listen. We will be coming out in future months with we're working on different things. We're actually working nationally as well as locally, so you will see more coming out, and I'm happy to come back. But we will, as the IWK Foundation and the IWK, we will say, okay, here's what we can do. But we are only one cog in the wheel, and that's the point of this, It's a 30,000-foot look at the system has to change, and it's going to take all of us. Women themselves empowering themselves. They didn't realize the gap that's actually there, the systemic bias that's built into the current system. But their actions and their experiences prove that. And so now it's, okay, now you know, keep learning. And we're trying to curate. We have a podcast to teach women. Like, we're doing what we can to educate women, but they themselves can educate themselves. But they've proven their resilience, hands down, in what they're enduring. Now it's time for the system to change and for the society to meet that.
All right. Well, Jennifer Gillivan, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Coming up, Palestinians rejoice in the streets of Gaza as Israel and Hamas sign off the first phase of the ceasefire deal.
And artificial intelligence. A new survey says the majority of Canadian students are turning to AI for schoolwork. Welcome back. After more than 2 years of war, a ceasefire deal has been agreed to in Gaza.
Israel has signed it, as has Hamas. The Israeli hostages still alive are expected to be freed within days. The CBC's Cameron McIntosh reports.
In the center of the Gaza Strip, celebration in this refugee camp. And on the streets of Deir al-Balah, optimism. My feelings are all over the place. You can't imagine, says Mahmoud Abdullah. Displaced 9 times, like most here, he's hoping this deal sticks. In Tel Aviv's Hostage Square, Israelis also cautiously celebrating.
Before it was prayers for hope, and now it's prayers for thankful prayers.
Just days after the second anniversary of the October 7th attack, where Hamas slaughtered more than 1,200 Israelis and kidnapped more than 200 others, igniting a war that has left about 67,000 Palestinians dead, according to Gazan officials. Israel and Hamas are agreeing to phase 1 of a complicated U.S.-led peace plan. Israel will begin to withdraw from Gaza in exchange for the remaining hostages, 20 believed to still be alive. Bombing continued this morning in Gaza. The ceasefire expected to come into effect over the next 24 hours. Amid some big questions, will Hamas disarm? Who will govern Gaza? Will this last? Francois de La Rochelle is a former Canadian diplomat in the Middle East.
I would say no, it's the easiest stage of that of this long process that is ahead.
Aid groups are waiting to surge in supplies. Canada among the countries supporting the deal.
We're encouraged, but it's the first phase, and there's more to come.
Thank you, Trump.
Meanwhile, on both sides, there's credit for the self-proclaimed deal and peacemaker Trump, who says he will visit the region to help start a fragile and fraught process. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
As we just heard, U.S. President Donald Trump is receiving bipartisan praise for the Israel-Hamas deal. But there's also recognition of how fragile it is as he plans to make a trip to the region. The CBC's Katie Nicholson reports.
Countries stepping up and putting up a lot.
At a morning cabinet meeting, praise for the U.S. president from his Secretary of State.
One day, perhaps the entire story will be told about the events of yesterday, but suffice it to say, it's not an exaggeration that none of it would have been possible without the President of the United States being involved.
Donald Trump, optimistic.
I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East.
Democrats voiced cautious support.
It's a very, very positive step in the right direction. We're all hopeful that this agreement will be finalized.
Including former President Barack Obama, who posted on X, "We should all be encouraged and relieved that an end to the conflict is within sight." The deal, brokered after intense meetings with Arab and Muslim countries and a White House visit with the Israeli Prime Minister. Through it all, Donald Trump taking a lead role.
The question is, will Donald Trump, having now proclaimed himself the peace president, having, I think, reasonably claimed credit for this agreement, will he now be personally invested in making sure it continues now that it's very much connected to his own legacy?
Not just his legacy on the line, but perhaps a Nobel Peace Prize, which Trump has made no secret of coveting. An Israeli farmer even plowed an endorsement into this field. Even his critics say if the deal succeeds, it may happen.
He desperately wants that Nobel Peace Prize. It won't happen tomorrow for a lot of reasons. But if this process continues, he may have a better argument next year. My only point here is we've been at this stage several times before, including, as I said, as recently as January, and the ceasefires have broken down.
But so far, this deal holding enough for the U.S. president to plan a trip to the region, just as the hostages are due to be released and as aid is expected to flow into Gaza. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
A French man has been sentenced to another year in jail for appealing his conviction for raping Gisèle Pellico. The 72-year-old woman was drugged unconscious by her husband, who invited dozens of men to sexually assault her. 51 men were handed jail terms last December, found guilty of rape, attempted rape, or sexual assault. But Hussein Douane was the only one to appeal his 9-year jail sentence. The prosecutor said Douane was unwilling to take responsibility for his actions. Douane had denied that he intended to rape Pellico and argued he was deceived by her then-husband. His sentence is now 10 years behind bars.
A new study reveals nearly 3/4 of young Canadians surveyed are turning to AI tools like ChatGPT for schoolwork. They say it's improving their grades and becoming a go-to for some projects. But it's also raising fresh concerns among students and educators alike. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson explains.
In the almost 3 years since ChatGPT exploded into the mainstream, AI has become a well-used resource by students. A new study by KPMG of 684 Canadian students in post-secondary institutions found 73% said they use generative AI for their schoolwork.
The students are definitely realizing that there is benefit to use the tools, that it can support their ability to respond to the queries that are being asked.
Students said they use AI for research, editing assignments, or writing essays. Still, there are reservations.
It is still surprising to see that nearly half the students say their critical thinking skills are deteriorating because of the use of AI.
That ambivalence came through when we talked to some students across the country.
I wouldn't say that I'm using AI tools specifically for legal research because in the field of law, AI is known to hallucinate more often and produce wrong results, such as cases that never exist.
AI can be a resource, especially with summarizing notes and etc. But yeah, I think I say I'm a bit concerned about work ethic, being able to think for myself in an exam setting.
This professor of education says it's up to instructors to set up clear expectations around what's acceptable use of AI.
Every generation of students has some cheaters, but it also has lots of people that want to learn either by doing it entirely themselves or sometimes with a little assistance. So we still need to figure out what counts as ethical assistance, if you will, or tutoring, but that's not up to the kids to decide. That's up to us to decide.
She says that the way assignments are constructed and how students are assessed may need to change to adapt to the rapidly advancing technology that students are already using. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Cardiologists and heart surgeons in Quebec are warning of staff shortages that are contributing to surgery delays and even deaths in the province. They've been reminding the government about the need for more perfusionists who help keep patients alive during heart surgery. The CBC's Alison Northcott has more.
My mom was an absolute joy to be around.
This Thanksgiving marks 1 year since Debbie Fuster died while waiting for triple bypass surgery in Manitoba.
I drove to my mother's house really quickly, obviously. I actually got there before the ambulance did, and she had passed away from a heart attack.
It's the kind of death on a surgical wait list cardiologists and heart surgeons in Quebec are warning about.
80 people have died in the last year and a half waiting for their surgery. So that is awful.
And that's just in Quebec. He said it's largely due to a shortage of staff like perfusionists. They play a crucial role during heart surgery, running the machine that does the life-sustaining work of the heart and lungs. The shortage affects other parts of Canada too, linked to higher salaries available in the U.S., an aging workforce and the intense demands of the job, says this perfusionist.
Well, you're essentially working on a cardiac surgeon's schedule, and with that, it becomes a challenging position to maintain over time.
Toronto's Michener Institute, one of 3 Canadian training sites, is working with the Ontario government to increase enrollment from 16 to 38 by 2027.
The importance of this role within the operating room is significant, and we believe that there's an opportunity here to meet that demand.
Debbie Fuster's son still doesn't know why her surgery wasn't scheduled or if it was linked to staffing. Still, he's pushed for change to ensure patients are informed about their wait time.
If we'd have known that my mom was going to be on a list for 2.5 months and she needed surgery in 3 weeks, we'd have done something about it.
In Quebec, the health ministry says patients waiting for heart surgery often have other serious health problems that could be related to their deaths, and says the perfusionist shortage accounts for just 1% of cancelled surgeries. The associations of cardiologists and heart surgeons in Quebec plan to file an ombudsman's complaint because they say the province hasn't done enough to address the problem. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
People across the country are still celebrating after a big win for the Blue Jays. The Toronto team will be hosting the American League Championship Series. It is the first time in 9 years, and now the mad scramble is on for tickets. Sheehan Desjardins reports.
The 1-2 pitch. Got him! And the Blue Jays have done it.
The Toronto Blue Jays are on their way to the American League Championship Series. And the hunt is on for fans looking for a seat.
I was not in the secondary market, will not do it. I just went on Ticketmaster. Got the link, went on, stayed in the queue for a long time actually, but ticket showed up.
My boyfriend was also trying and didn't manage to get tickets. I felt a little bit bad, but yeah, I got them. So I get the bragging rights now.
Others weren't so lucky. Tickets went on sale Thursday morning. Thousands waited online, but the resale market is already causing prices to skyrocket.
It was already in my cart, but then it just disappeared for some reason, just the regular tickets. But I think the resale tickets are only available right now, so they're just going for crazy for the 500 level.
Guerrero shoots it down the right field line.
For the Jays, it's a complete 180 from last season.
And there it is!
And after beating one of baseball's most successful franchises, early skepticism about whether the team would even make playoffs this year proven wrong.
From the perspective of all of the parts, the moving parts working together, definitely there's a little bit of magic in that right now.
And Canadians want in. ALCS Jays merch is a hot commodity. And tickets or not, fans are ready for this team to go all the way.
I was born in '93, so I've been waiting for this curse to be broken for many years.
The Jays will take on either the Detroit Tigers or the Seattle Mariners, both cities close to Canadian borders and both likely to draw significant cross-border support for the Toronto team. The Jays will be playing Game 1 here on Sunday with home field and country advantage. Sheehan Desjardins, CBC News, Toronto.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
All right, we're all excited. We got a little moisture. We've been craving it for so long, but a shower or rain, in some places rain, at least it's not what we need, but it's thankful just for us to have it.
But a bit of a break before we see any more.
Yeah, another dry spell. You know, it's a beautiful weekend. If we weren't so much in a deficit for rain, we would be cheering for this weekend because it's so beautiful and our temperature's getting a little bit above where we should be for this time of year and lots of sunshine. But yeah, we need some more rain. We do have some more rain forecasted in the extended forecast. It's just going to have to wait until after the weekend. So a few showers in the forecast for tonight, courtesy of that system that pushed through and those northwesterly winds. So here, we're tracking some raindrops. We can still get a few overnight tonight. Not
any little bit helps.
Yeah, exactly. It's really not meaningful rain, but again, like you said, any little bit does help. So the rain is still going on. These northwesterly winds will slowly start to subside overnight tonight, and that will shut the rain showers off, with the exception of Cape Breton, where the rain showers will linger not only tonight, but through tomorrow morning as well. Then we clear out from west to east during the day on Friday into Saturday. And then on Sunday, another disturbance comes up from the southwest, and that could bring us our next best chance for showers coming our way Monday night into Tuesday. It's going to be a cold overnight tonight, though. Temperatures dropping down near or below freezing away from the coast in those low-lying areas, holding between 2 and 5 degrees along the coast with those winds lightening up from west to east. And we're talking about this weekend. Look at that weekend forecast.
Yeah, you're right. It does look nice.
It's pretty good for a long weekend, yeah.
I know. So I have to put the extended in because that's where we have some chances for rain coming our way Monday into Tuesday.
All right, Tina, thanks for that. Like you say, we'll be grateful for whatever rain we do get. Thanks for that. Well, finally tonight, a PEI man is getting ready for Halloween, not with spooky stories, but with wooden pumpkins.
That's right. He decided to up his decorating game with some trees that fell during post-tropical storm Fiona. Have a look.
The neighbor next door had a snag that had died during Fiona, so a standing dead tree. This summer it did fall on them, so they knew I did some chainsaw stuff, so they asked me to come take care of it for them. They offered me the wood, but because the fire ban was on, I wasn't about to burn it up, so I decided to do something a little different with it. We do a big display for Halloween every single year. And in my mind, for quite a while now, I've wanted to do a lot of pumpkins on the front yard. So this provided the perfect opportunity for that. For how long it took, I kind of just picked at it in the evenings after work. So basically, I just used a chainsaw to nip off the top and the bottom of the log. And then I basically sanded it down so I had a nice smooth finish, and then base coated it with orange, slapped a stem on top, and away we went. And then just stenciled on the faces. Yeah, definitely a unique use for the wood. It was one of those things that came about, you know, you're just mindless scrolling on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. You see this idea and you're like, I could do that. And this is what we end up with. Hopefully the neighborhood kids really enjoy it.
He's pretty good with the chainsaw.
I know, and you can use them again next year.
You sure can. All right, well, that's great. That's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.